Namaste everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host Kushalmehra. So the budget is out, and as always, I have Monika Halan with me to talk about the budget. Because whenever we have to have a discussion about this thing, I just go to her, and she's kind enough, and she says yes, as always. Monica, how are you doing?
Very well. Thank you for inviting me on your pod.
So हमने 6 महीने पहले लास्ट बजट की बात की थी. Exactly.
Correct.
So now we are
Yes,
back again. Last
we're back
last
again.
budget was yes, we are back again. Last budget, the Honorable Finance Minister of India was getting a lot of lashing from the middle class, but we will get into all of those subjects later on. First, let's start with your general commentary on the budget. What do you make of it? Who are the winners? Who are the um, losers, according to you? And then I'll maybe get into a few granular details with you. So over to you.
Sure. So I wrote a piece for the Hindustan Times on that budget day, and the headline which came to my mind was that this is a high class budget for the middle class. That's how I'm defining this budget, that it's a budget aimed at the middle class, thanking them for being patient all these years because COVID was difficult years. They did not have the fiscal space at all to give the tax break to the small community, which has absolutely no choice but to go on paying taxes. So I think that the angst of the middle class increased after the July budget, where we were expecting some sort of relief, but that didn't come. And then came a lot of these transfers, the cash transfers and all. So the budget had to address this fairly and squarely. And what I can tell you is that I think they've been really bold in the sort of way they have expanded the tax free limit. I mean, we can get into that a little bit, but basically, it's a giant leap of faith to say that we will allow most of you to go tax free. We will tax the upper middle class, literally. And when I read the budget numbers, I'm seeing the collection on direct tax revenue is 2 lakh crore more than this year. Okay. This is after they have left 1 lakh crore on the table. So this means the total number increase is 3 lakh crore in the budget expectations for next year, which clearly to me indicates that they plan to expand the tax net, which is again a very good thing. So this is as far as the middle class goes, and there are a lot of small other things that they have done. The marginal rate is now starting at 24 or 30%. That's a big one. Other small things they have done. While doing all of this, they have kept the fiscal discipline. So what is the fiscal discipline? It is simply that you shouldn't borrow too much. What is a good number to borrow? There is something called the FRBM Act, which means financial responsibility. You should be financially responsible. That number has been fixed at 3% of GDP. Okay, so the fiscal deficit ideally should be 3% of GDP. During COVID, we went all the way up, I think, to 8 or 9% of GDP. And then we've been on a glide path. So not only did she overshoot the target for this year for fiscal deficit, I think at 4.8, down from 4.9. For the next year, she's lowering it to 4.4, which is great. And this number is very important when we look at India's credit rating, when funds from abroad have to come. When we look at pension funds, and we look at the uh, ratings by people like Standard and Poor and all these ratings which happen, country ratings when they happen, they look at this number very carefully, especially because we are not the European and the American nations. They look at, for a nation like India, they look at this number carefully. So she's maintained that number. While maintaining this, she's managed to do this big push for the middle class. And I think for me, the takeaway is that they didn't, like, this wasn't a half step. This was a leap. It's a giant leap to do this big a tax change.
So, like when we talk about a tax change, can we explain that a little bit more in detail, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Because I think the devil
No,
always lies in the
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
details.
yeah. Okay, so income tax is levied on different slabs of income. Okay, we know that. And the rate goes up as your income goes up. So I will just, read out. So the current slab now begin. The first 4 lakh is tax free. Then there's a progressive. Every next 4 lakh is taxed higher. So the next 4 lakh to 8 lakh is now taxed at 5%. And like that, at differences of 4 lakhs, when you get to the 24 lakh number, so annual income of 24 lakh, now is taxed at 30% plus cess plus surcharge to baad mein aata hai, at plus cess. This number used to be 15 lakh. So somebody earning 15 lakh was at the highest tax level in India. And you and I know that a person earning 15 lakh a year is not upper middle class, is not rich, not by a long shot. In a city like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, a person earning 15 lakh a year is just about making do. Now, when you change this to 24 lakh, that's 2 lakh income a month, that person might be able to sustain a 30% tax rate. And that's at the margin. Somebody at 30 lakh, only at that marginal income, that last 6 lakh is being taxed at 30. Baki to sab lower rate pe hai na? So your average rate will be much lower. Right? So that's been the big difference, that you have raised the income level at which your highest tax rate will apply. That's one thing. The second thing is that if you're earning 12 lakh and no more, that money is tax free because of a rebate. So you follow this whole tax system, but you get a rebate of, I think it's 70,000 or 60,000. I have the numbers somewhere. One moment. Let me just open my file. I think you get a rebate of, I will just check this. I think it's 70,000 rupees, 60,000, sorry. It's a 60,000 rupee rebate, which means that the tax is calculated at that 12 lakh number of income. It is 60 lakh, and then they give you a rebate so that you go to a zero tax status. So somebody earning 1 lakh rupees a month now goes tax free. That is huge. Look, really, that's very, very big. But this income should be salary income or income from business or profession. It cannot be capital gains. So they're removing people who have assets, who are obviously the rich, who will have the assets to have a 12 lakh income from short or long term capital gains, which is why the markets were not happy on budget day. Because it clearly says that that income does not qualify for that 12 lakh. You will follow the threshold of 0 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 12. You will follow that. So these are the two big things which have happened, that you have your tax-free income number is 12 lakh. If you earn above that, then you start with your slabs of 0 to 4, 4 to 8. But should you be under the 12 lakh number, you go tax-free. That's pretty big.
Now, the first question that comes over here is, do you think this targeted segregation of, let's say, asset investors, which are clearly people who have disposable income, overly complicates the system? Do you think a more flatter approach would have been better, even if it benefits some people, which in the political discussion may not have been ideal, just for the simplification?
Look, at some point, you need revenues also, no? The government needs the revenue. What is it? How do you do this without, how do you give the people who actually are depending on their salaries for living versus people who are depending on their assets? So you can argue that there is a whole lot of senior citizens who have this, who might get hurt. But for senior citizens, there are some other provisions, in terms of the TDS threshold goes up, the interest rates are higher on fixed deposits, all of that is there. But so people don't really understand the tax system. And I was at a lunch yesterday, and somebody was joking that compensation paid after a disaster they thought was going to be taxed. And they were surprised that it is not taxed. So I said, I am not surprised at all that it is not taxed, because the tax system has a logic. You simply don't understand that logic. So the question was, what is that logic? I said, taxation, my dear, is on income and profits. Compensation is neither. Right? So the government will tax income and it will tax profits. When it tax profits are typically made by the owners of assets. That's the hard fact. And we remain a country with a very large disparity of income. We are still giving, excuse me, free food grain to, what is it, 800 million people? Right? So
Yeah,
there
give or
is
take.
a constituency. So there is a it is a giant negotiation, and it is a tightrope walk for North Bloc, undoubtedly. But I think it's fine. I think it's okay.
So now something I don't know if you I think to me the highlight of the budget was the middle class tax relief and the amendments to the Atomic Energy Act and the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage
Okay.
Act. I think people people
Yeah,
don't
that's
understand
big.
the significant.
They don't
Uh,
understand. Yeah. No, that's
yeah,
right.
people
No,
don't
my focus
understand
was
from
middle
a
class. So, but yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just the change that has come. But the question that I often ask, like 6 months ago, this government was under so much criticism. I mean, I remember you and I doing the podcast just 6 months ago, and you just go and listen to it. Like everybody has been. I mean, I've personally find some of the criticism of the honorable finance minister to be deeply misogynistic. I think if there was a man involved there,
Yeah.
there would not have been such
Yeah. I would
ridiculous
agree.
terminology being
I
used.
would agree.
And
Yeah.
but it's something that my dear friend Harsh Madhusudan has also told me that because there is a woman at the helm of affairs, this has
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
happening. But one has
No,
to
no,
ask
we
the
see
question, why
that
didn't they just
everywhere.
do it
Yeah.
6 months ago?
I don't get, I haven't understood it. That is something I was deeply disappointed with. They had, they had the fiscal room to do it. I have no idea why they didn't do it. Maybe there wasn't enough time to prepare the budget. Immediately after coming into power, they had the full budget announcement. I'm not sure why they didn't. Maybe they didn't think that the middle class anger would become so much. So they probably thought that we could continue, because look, it is a nice 1 lakh crore is everyone, every ministry would like that. Every finance minister would like that extra 1 lakh crore. But I think it was just a poor decision that time. It was a poor judgment of how far you can push this little tiny. I want to read out some numbers to you. Financial year 23, total number of returns filed is 7.54 crore. What is our population? Okay.
Yeah,
Total returns filed, it gets worse. Total number of taxpayers, 2.81 crore. Of the
my
7.54, and this number is going to drastically fall unless they are able to increase the tax net. Okay, so there is a giant problem. And then, I did a column on trying to estimate. So you and I have both have had experiences. I am pulling out my card to pay. The person next to me has a lakh in cash. Who carries a lakh in cash? It's only that person who has not paid taxes. So I'm very close to making a snarky comment at checkout that obviously this looks like untaxed money. My husband has to hold me back. That, why do you want to get into a fight here? It's not your fight. But I feel like pointing out and saying, see, this is untaxed paid money. I'm paying you, you can buy 30% more simply because you have not paid tax. S- so this has been bothering me, that what is the size of this community who simply does not pay tax. So I looked at, so price is this the market research agency, and they have had a report for financial year 2021 on the middle class. Okay, so they have this bullish uh, projection that India's middle class is large and growing. So we are not able to define middle class. यार बात क्या करते हैं हम लोग कि definition क्या है? कुछ का somebody is defining middle class as somebody with income of 1.5 lakh, 2 lakh in a year. I said, nahi hai na. We know that person is not middle class. These people define a middle class household with incomes between 5 and 30 lakh. Okay, so they have their methodology. You can read it. Between 5 lakh to 30 lakh family household income is a middle class household. They calculate that there are 43.2 crore people, 432 million people in this income band. Okay, this is the population. But if we reduce this and say that how many households would it be? Average size of a household is 4.4. So I'm saying there are 9.8 crore households, and each household has one taxpayer. When you do these numbers, you find that there are the non-taxpayers for FY21 was 8.3 crore. At that time, 1.5 crore people were paying taxes. The number of people in this income band who were not paying taxes was 8.3 crore. Half of these can be farmers because farmers are not taxed. Even a 4 crore number is very large. And the amount of tax which is exempted or avoided is 7.8 lakh crore. Just the middle class. Rich ka number to aur upar hai. Huge, huge. Right? So for us, I think the problem really is that they are unable, and this is government after government, unable to get the people who don't pay to pay. And we all know who these people are. We see them around us. They are neighbors of ours. They are people who we know who are simply out of the tax net. So I would think the challenge is now to get them into the tax net so that we can share the burden better.
I want to take this discussion forward, but 2 points I want to bring out again. When will it become politically correct to say rich farmers should pay taxes in India?
When that population goes down, there are too many of them.
That's such a
You'll
correct
have to,
answer. Honestly, that is the only
yeah,
answer.
yeah, it's too sensitive. It is too, and those farm laws would have really helped, but again, political considerations made them withdraw it. You need corporatization of farms. You need large farms to come. You need economies of scale. Of course, bespoke farming will continue. Those boutique farms will continue wherever. But if you want to produce at scale and get economies of scale with inputs, with mechanization, like why do you have to have a bullock cart and a man behind it? I mean, it's 1857. Ye kya hai ye? So what is this? So it's too large a number for them to mess with. And I have a further thought on this. So there is this whole thing that the center has to look after the farmer. But every time you talk about taxation, they say, oh, but agriculture is a state subject. So why are we giving MSP from the center, bhai? Hello, subsidy yahan se kyun ja rahi hai? Why shouldn't the center only pass the money on to the states and say, you handle whatever? Aapko dena hai, do, nahi dena hai, mat do. Why are the farmers at my Delhi doorstep asking for MSP? They should ask their state government, na? Why are they here? Why has the center to give when they don't have the ability to tax them? So I think the center should push the discussion to the states and say, okay, here is the money. You want to give MSP, you give MSP. I
So,
see. I don't know the nuanced answer to that, but I would just say that if the ability to tax them remains with the states, let the states pick up the MSP and subsidy bill also.
so I'll give you a very interesting thing that I came across. I just came back from Punjab, 4 or 5 days, went to a lot of village, rural Punjab also, spoke to a lot of
Hmm.
people who are involved in agriculture. And I asked them, I was like, I mean, you guys have been given MSP promises in other vegetables too, or other things too. Why don't you guys go away from rice? And they're like, but that
Hmm.
is all under the state government. We don't trust the state government. It's like, पैसा नहीं
So
आएगा.
yeah,
1% already कंगाल है.
yeah. So that's the sad thing that the center is beaten up, and I can go on giving you example after example. So again, I was on Times Now this time for the debates, and there was somebody, I don't know, I can't remember. just ranting about the fact that they haven't increased the outlay on education and health. So I said, let me read out some data to you. So he was talking of how the center. So I said, do we agree that education and health is a state subject? Yes. I have reference data to show that one, the average government teacher earns 5 to 10 times more than a similar private school. Okay, this is all reference data. The public sector average wage is one of the highest in the world. Did you know that? Don't think about secretaries, don't think about CEOs of banks who are public sector. Leave that. If you look at the average wage, it is one of the highest government wages in the world in India. So they are paid well. Let's look at output. Let's look at outcomes. Government, education, and health, state subjects. So there is a study done. Karthik Murlidharan has got a book out, and I picked up the data from there. In some of his research, he found that at any given time, 25% of the teachers are not, they're absent in the government schools. And from those who come, 25% are not teaching. So around up to 50% on a given day are not teaching. So which is why we have the terrible outcomes on education. The story is the same in health. So, whereas the center is giving money, what is it that the states are doing in terms of implementation of that money? So, I'm saying very good they have not increased the allocation. Let's see some outcomes. Why will I throw good money after bad? Why don't we have an outcome based approach in evaluating government services before we go on giving them more and more and more money? 8th pay commission ab raha hai. You are just pumping money. Look, let's do a calculation of their benefits, no? Let's impute value to their housing, to the medical, to the pensions, lifelong medical benefits, CGHS, whatnot. Let me do a present value of this future stream of benefits. I can tell you that they are extremely highly paid. What is my outcome? Why is the urban mess so bad? Is that for the center to solve? Is it for the state to solve? And then we come to this question of empowerment and who we don't have this mayor system, the municipalities are dens of corruption. Who's to solve it? It's a circular argument. So, but the only thing is that the poor finance minister gets blamed for things like dysfunctional schools and hospitals, which the state governments are responsible for.
Not only is it a state government responsibility, the irony is, in my own, I'm not saying it's a comprehensive study, but in my own travels in rural India, I found in many cases teachers outsourcing their job to someone else to teach in the school
Yeah,
while they go and do some better job in the private sector. तो वो टीचर की सैलरी ले
yeah,
रहे हैं, सेटिंग करके
yeah.
अपनी उधर लगवा रहे हैं अटेंडेंस, they are getting the attendance, then they are subcontracting it to someone else to go teach to the children, which is a substandard quality teacher. So they have made it
Yeah.
a business. So I mean, what do you do then? What does a person do in such a
So,
scenario?
so Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner in Berkshire Hathaway, he has this brilliant quote: "Show me an incentive, I'll show you an outcome." The salaries are so high that then you have things like recruitment scams. You have the job being sold by bureaucrats and politicians. Then you have people
Mhm.
who don't deserve to be there are there, and there is enough malai left for this guy to outcontract it at half the price and do something else with his time. So there is a problem with the way the payments are made. There is a problem that we should pay our teachers excellently. We should absolutely make them responsible for the quality of education they give. Not for a moment am I saying don't pay them well. Pay them well, but make them responsible for outcome in education. What is this? They can't read, they can't write. They are coming out of class 12 not knowing anything. Abhi, I was somewhere and this something happened and my husband was in the Andaman for a lecture series. So they said, "Where is he?" I said, "Kala Pani." So they thought it was some place where there is Kala Pani. I said, "You've not heard of Kala Pani?" They said, "No." I said, have you heard of like the jail there? They had no idea. They've not studied this in school. They have no idea. Then the guy Googles it and says, "Oh, movie bani hai." Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah. And this is a person who's come out of the government school system. उसको काला पानी नहीं पता था, क्या पढ़ के आया है वो? ये तो हमारी हिस्ट्री है। उसको अकबर पता होगा, उसको वो सब पता होगा, पर काला पानी नहीं पता है उसको।
काला पानी जानना तो पाप हो गया ना। वो तो तुमने देश के लिए काम किया, वो अलाउड नहीं है। इस देश में देश के लिए काम करना अलाउड नहीं है। बाकी सब करो, देश के लिए काम करोगे छितर पड़ेंगे तुमको। वो बात होती है। मगर सच्चाई है। ओके, नाउ आई वांट टू गेट इनटू दिस बिट। डू यू थिंक द गवर्नमेंट हैज डन enough for businesses? Let's focus on the business bit. Okay, I know they are trying to push the MSME sector. One of the higher, like, I think, what was that, easy access to credit, that was, they're trying to push that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there
yeah.
was one credit guarantee scheme extension. वो क्या है वो to fund
I
micro and
haven't really
small.
got deeply into it, but look, one is that to the corporate sector, there is still a very easy tax rate. Okay, the tax rate is lower than what the individual pays at the highest slab. So, corporate taxes, government has reduced greatly, trying to get them to start the next cycle of investment. The private sector investment cycle is not beginning because of one sluggish demand. Urban demand has been sluggish. Second, they are waiting for two things to work out globally. These are global threats. One is the final impact of AI. They don't know what finally will be the AI impact on my labor requirements. Will I need 20 employees or just two? Okay, these are very real decisions to be made. Because in India, once you hire, it's very difficult to fire. So they are waiting to see the impact of AI. That's one. Second is this uncertainty because of Donald Trump and what the world looks like maybe in the next 6 months. So I would imagine that these two things are holding back the next round of investments, which is extremely important. And then the whole MSME, I mean, they are trying to give them easier credit, um, basically. But and also this whole Jan Vishwas 2 is also aimed at reducing this regulatory cholesterol, because I don't think it's so much about incentives. It's just that if the government got out of the way and stopped rent seeking, and we all know how much corruption is there down the line. I think we have agreed that it adds 10% to the cost. In certain states, which I shall not name, that cost is 30%. Okay, it's as bad as that. The scratching away is as bad as 30% for so-called honest governments. Usually it's like 10%. So if that was to reduce, then I think if the government would just stop putting hurdles in the way of people wanting to just do business. So Jan Vishwas 2 has been announced. Let's see what they do with that.
You know what, I think you should also listen to this clip. I'm sure आपने सुना ही होगा, but I mean, see, this is the kind of stuff that honestly makes me feel depressed about our country. When the honorable finance minister of the country says things like this, I was like, yaar, kuch nahi ho sakta hamara. So let me play this clip for the benefit of our viewers. Just listen to this.
Couple of things which have been in the works for some time. One is the thought that the direct tax should be made simple and that it should be easy for compliance. And the tome that goes in the name of direct taxation or Income Tax Act will have to be a lot more simpler. So that work, as I announced in the July 24 budget, within 6 months, we were getting ourselves ready to get that income tax, the new act, ready. So in the process, although the emphasis was more towards simplifying the language, reduce the compliance burden, and also to make it a bit more user friendly, and not let it be suffering due to various interpretations, which also was sought to be termed as rent seeking tools. So we were essentially working on that. At that time, as I specified in the July budget, it wasn't talking about rate restructuring. Although, for several years now, we've been looking at the ways in which the rates can be a lot more reasonably taxpayer friendly. And therefore, that work was also going on. Equally, after July budget, there was this um, voice of the middle class, which felt that they were ending up paying the tax, never mind. They were absolutely proud and happy to be taxpayers of this country, but also felt they don't seem to have much coming in the way of redressing their problems. And there was also this feeling that the government was very inclusive in taking care of the poor, also focusing on vulnerable sections and so on. So the voice which came wherever I traveled was, we are proud taxpayers, we are honest taxpayers, we want to be continuing to serve the country by being good taxpayers. But would you think about what are the kind of things you can do for us? And so I had this discussion also with the Honorable Prime Minister, who put me on the specific assignment of see what is it that you can come up with. And therefore, we did a bit of within the ministry work and briefed the PM on what is it that is before us. And guided by him, we've come up with this.
How much did it take? How much persuasion did it take to get the prime minister on board, or was it just, I know it's a lot more complicated. It's not so simple, but was he like,
No.
yes, let's go ahead with it?
No, I think your question should be how much did it take for me to convince the ministry, the board? So it is not so much the PM. The PM was very clear that he wants to do something.
Yeah.
It is for the ministry to have had the comfort level and then go with the proposal. So the more work that was needed for convincing the board that efficiency in collection and honest taxpayers' voice, all this was work here in the ministry, not so much with the.
यार क्या हो सकता है इस देश का, मेरे को बताओ मोनिका. व्हाट कैन वी डू इन दिस कंट्री वेयर द फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर सेइंग ये प्राइम मिनिस्टर को तो मैंने पटा लिया और मेरे ही लोग, मेरे बाबू ही ऐसे हैं. यार क्या होगा? मतलब मैं ये सुना मैं डिप्रेशन में चले गया कि क्या देश है ये हमारा.
अभी हमको बहुत अच्छा एग्जाम्पल मिल रहा है एंड आई विल गेट रोल्ड फॉर सेइंग व्हाट आई विल से नाउ. Across the oceans, we have somebody who is hacking through bureaucracy, who's finding documents, who's finding where the fluff was. So one is, of course, Argentina, Meli, and second is our friend Elon Musk. Right? So they're basically showing that it can be done. It requires very tough decisions. But I think we all understand as an incumbent bureaucracy, there are these incumbent elite organizations as well who are very, very entrenched, very difficult to get out. And we are just seeing some of the fight back that agencies are giving to the US administration, the new administration, and what they are doing over there. So I'm just watching to see where this goes, because the world has not seen this at all. The incumbents, the elite incumbents, are in the real power. Politicians come and go. The power belongs to the system. That is very clear. You look at the municipalities, you get one honest guy will come and he will basically come and tell you there's nothing I can do because the money goes all the way up. So there is a problem of the money going all the way up as well. Yeah, we have severe problems of a deeply, deeply, deeply corrupt mindset and the elite incumbents. It's depressing. You're right. Very, very depressing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
matlab, when I hear the finance minister of India saying,
Finance
"Oh,
minister.
yeah, I mean, क्या मतलब क्या बोले? I mean, क्या
क्या
बोलना
बोले
क्या
क्या
रह
बोले
क्या गया है?
Yeah,
I mean, and you know
really.
I have a lot of admiration. I've never hidden. I'm very fond of her. I've always observed her career from the days when she was the spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Correct.
I've
Yes.
always had a lot of
What a
admiration for her.
journey. What a
Yeah,
journey.
I mean,
Yeah.
an extremely articulate woman. I remember the days like in 2009, 10, 11, 12, UPA 1, UPA 2, how she would come on mainstream media, articulate herself, make her point of view. I've always admired her for her work ethic and many other things. But to see her say, hey, yaar, it was a
Yeah.
struggle to convince my own ministry, I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is
Utha le re baba.
Uh, but I'm glad
Yeah.
she said it. I'm glad
Yeah.
now the country knows what the minister goes through because of these
Yeah.
babus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You spoke about Donald Trump and the government because he's been tariffing the living daylights out of everything. We just had the Canada and Mexico tariffs start today. So I want to talk again a very important aspect of the budget. I'm going to read the customs duty bit and I want to know your views. So these are the items.
Yeah.
So they've
Hmm.
exempted 36 drugs for cancer, rare diseases from
Cancer.
basic customs duty. 37 more medicines have been removed. Basic customs duty has been reduced to 5% from 30% on fish. For fish, hydrolysate for manufacturing of aquatic feed has been reduced from 15% to 5%. Compounds containing pyrimidine ring or piperazine rings basic customs duty has been reduced from 10 to 7.5. And okay, I did not understand this bit. Like many custom duties have reduced, but basic custom duties on knitted fabrics covered under specified tariff items will increase from 10 to 20%. Clear hedge. This is the geopolitical hedge now. And
Hmm.
my understanding, now we're going to screw Bangladesh. I can tell you, when
Okay.
knitted fabrics
Okay.
customs duty has been increased, that
Okay.
means Bangladesh
Okay.
is no longer going to be spared. We're screwing Bangladesh, and all the
Okay.
orders from Bangladesh are going to go. And Indian textile के अच्छे दिन शुरू हो गए हैं.
Acha. Okay. I missed this one completely. But yeah, looks like that.
Yeah, so this
Okay.
is there.
Flat
And
panel.
फ्लैट पैनल
हाँ.
डिस्प्ले का 20% कर
Hmm.
दिया है 10% से to I guess encourage. Most of the custom duties have been reduced. Now do you think this is
Reduced.
also done,
Yeah.
yeah, reduced to, I think, considering what Donald Trump has come, I think he has to had
Yeah. Yeah.
played
Yeah.
a role.
No, no, this is preemptive. I mean, that motorcycle, Harley Davidson, is something that he already had spoken to last time about duties on that. I think this is preemptive. That look, we are already doing what you want us to do. So be nice to us. So I think this is a very, very big signal that we are playing ball. We are on your camp. We want to work with you. And look, we are already on the front foot doing it before you ask us to do it. So I would interpret it as within the budget a geopolitical step, which is good in the sense that absolutely you have a new. So do we agree that the US is the global power? I think we do
Obviously.
because the other power is
Obviously.
China, and we don't want to align with that. So if it is the US and there's a new rule book in place, we need to understand what that rule book is without compromising on our geopolitical security, our energy security, our basic things which matter to us. We should look after that, but yet we indicate that we are happy to play the game. So I think I would interpret it in that way.
Yeah, as far as geopolitical and security, national security, and many other things are concerned, I think the biggest news, like I'll repeat this again, for me personally, this budget, middle class, I understand because that was like to set up 5 SMRs And the 2047 nuclear target set to 100 gigawatts has to be
Yeah.
one of the biggest things, because see,
Yeah.
we are a net importer
Yeah.
of hydrocarbons. We keep
That's right.
importing that, and if we don't reduce our oil dependency in the considering hostile geopolitical climate, I think we cannot survive. We have to change, and this should
Absolutely.
also
You're
make
so
the
right. Right.
incoming American government very happy, or the current government very happy.
Right. Right. No, no, absolutely. And nuclear has a bad name, but what I'm understanding, the technology now has moved so that the probability of a leakage is down to zero. So there is some new technology which unfortunately China has developed, but I'm sure we can reverse engineer that the what is the problem with nuclear, that there can be an event. Apparently that problem has been solved with these mini nuclear reactors. Some of those problems have been solved. So if the danger has gone away, why would we not do nuclear? Absolutely, nuclear energy. So huge. This is very, very big.
So again, for so big industry, we talked about MSME. Now let's talk about the corporate India. How do you think this government has done as far as this budget is concerned for corporate India? Like, I read op-eds, everybody seems to be praising it, but nowadays it's very hard to trust any op-ed. So what are your views?
Yeah. No, I think the focus completely, the large firms were given over the years the lower tax regime, the PLI scheme. See, post COVID, a lot happened to get these people into starting to invest more and incentivize manufacturing here. So I think there's been a lot of focus on the corporate sector. The government is actually waiting for them to pick the baton up. And now, with the credit policy coming in February, now soon, my sense is we should see again a substantive rate cut. RBI should be bold and go for that rate cut, which is what the industry has been waiting for. It leads to better money, liquidity in the system, borrowing becomes a little easier, and it's a signal that inflation is under control and we are basically starting the next investment cycle. That is the signal from RBI that the industry is also waiting for. That you are confident enough that inflation is under control. You're beginning the rate cut cycle. We will also start the investing cycle. So I think I don't think that I have noticed anything specifically for the large corporates other than Jan Vishwas too, which is that can you not jail me if I don't lime wash my walls? Can you not jail me if I don't have a canteen committee constituted every 6 months? Can you not jail me? These are jail provisions for things which are just procedural or even defunct now. So I would just imagine the corporate sector would be very, very happy if the government rent seeking machine would go out of business. Then the real business can start.
Yeah, to the RBI, I think the perfect meme or gift for RBI will be "Tera khoon kab kholega Faisal." It's
I
like, I
think we
don't know
should
what the
see.
RBI is
Yeah.
waiting for.
We sh- so, look, RBI is constrained by the inflation target that it's been set of 4%. But what I understand is that a lot of this is old, based on older numbers, where food used to be a large part of our consumption basket. New research is showing through the consumption data that food is less than half of our expenditure, monthly expenditure across rural, urban, across rich, poor. The expenditure on food is less than half now. And within food, there is more expenditure on fruits, vegetables, proteins. So the consumption basket is changing. Therefore, the weightage of food in the overall index needs to reduce. Should we do that, the inflation target would have been met. Okay, so there is this tension between the statistics organization and the economists and the RBI to say, if you would just change the benchmark, I can meet my inflation target and reduce rates. But these organizations, again, are very slow moving and possibly might be reluctant to respond to such data. But that till that happens, I think we will have to stay with the definitions of inflation that we have. So, but having said that, I think that part is fairly under control. We should be seeing some rate cuts soon.
Before I take some questions for you, is there anything else you think we could not cover and we should cover?
No, I think it's been pretty comprehensive. We've got, I think we've covered most of the things. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, great. Then I'll लोगों के questions. So किसी ने पूछा, considering inflation isn't 12 LPA from 25-26 budget is the same as 2.5 LPA in 10-11. We are not saving much, but government is saying we have increased class tax slab, but now the prices are going to increase. Is that true? Some listener has a viewer has asked this question.
That will the prices increase because
So I'll put it up.
of
So they're
what is
saying
LPA?
because
I,
I
Acha, okay, we are not saving much. Increase. We are not saving much. Increase. No, I don't think because of this prices are going to increase. And I
lakhs
think the
per
point
annum.
that he's making, that I think the point that he's making is that inflation would have taken it to 12 in any way. So what is the big deal? That is probably the point. But yeah, so they may have responded to inflation, but still today the difference between 2 lakh and 12 lakh income is still substantial. Somebody earning 2 in a year and 12 in a year, I think we can clearly see the difference in their state of being in terms of what they earn. So price rises, uh, we don't have that excess demand. So why do prices go up? If the central bank prints money, if government does an inflationary budget, which they have not done, or prices will increase if it's a consumption push, that is demand push, which we are not seeing. So seems to be no reason for prices to go up.
Will there only be one tax regime under the new income tax bill? Since now we have two regimes, will government allow deductions under Chapter 6A under the new scheme?
So you still have the option of going for the old, but it's not going to benefit much unless you have very large deductions that you take. That you maximize the deductions that you have, and then you're really able to save a lot. For all practical purposes, the old regime is defunct. I would imagine most people will onboard the new tax regime. In the new tax regime, there are a few deductions still given. One is the standard deduction for only salaried individuals, okay, not for people with business and profession. Only people who draw only salary income, no other income. For them, there is a 75,000 standard deduction. And there is one more where the employer's contribution to the NPS up to 14% is also a deduction. So these are the two main deductions. There is a third deduction where if you have a house on rent, which you have taken a loan for, but it's rented out, that entire interest is a deduction. Okay, because it's seen as a cost to an investment. That loan is seen as the interest is seen as a cost. And if you've put that on rent, then that entire interest that you're paying is a deduction. So these are the three big ones that the new scheme has. And I'm sincerely hoping that slowly they don't start introducing more and more deductions, because then we are back to that old scheme.
Right. Okay. Next question. We don't have a middle class, but serfs of lenders and government for loans and taxes. And should we consider farms as MSME and tax them, provide insurance? At least 20 to 40,000 crore will be coming into the coffers. Okay. Your view?
Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, that it's a politically very sensitive subject. We will really have to move people out of agriculture. The population depending on agriculture has to go down substantially for them to not have this voting power that they currently have. Till then, I think it's very difficult. They might have to find ways to tax the people who show their other income as agricultural income, people who become these urban farmers, people who have other businesses but have one farm, and they will book their income there and show taxpayers. So the government has to go after those people really. And but yeah, look, it is a political economy question. It's a very, very
Mm.
difficult um, constituency to tax because there's this whole emotional thing of andata and all of that. Yeah. I mean, I would say give them, insurance products, allow them to give them great input, uh, help them with marketing, allow them good insurance products to reach them so that they can hedge the crop prices. They can buy insurance for crop failures. And now you have companies setting up these through drones. See, the problem with insurance was that how could an insurance surveyor go to check that a flood had damaged crops, for example? Who will go? Where will he go? By the time he reaches, it's finished. Now, some companies are using drones to go and check the exact damage done for the insurance to pay. I think we need to do more of that so that the farmers can, fight on their own without having these subsidies and all that. They can fight on their 2 feet with modern financial products, which help them hedge the risks, which allow them to borrow for inputs at market rates of interest and yet have that protection that there is nobody coming to gouge their uh, incomes out of them. So the new farm laws had a lot of those protections in place. Just very unfortunate that it wasn't allowed again politically to pass.
So somebody has asked, how will the current budget impact key sectors like 3D printing, artificial intelligence? I think it's too early to say. In fact, that is one of my worries
Yeah.
with the entire deep seek thing happening with China and all those things. Like, my biggest worry is that, are we missing the bus again? Are we going to miss the next bus? We missed the manufacturing bus. Are we going to miss the next bus
Yeah.
too? And are we prepared as a country?
What I'm understanding is that some of the large firms are investing on their own, very heavily in this area. So whether it is something for the government to do or whether it is for the large private sector companies to put their R&D money in for this, I think we might be surprised, in some time to see some of the work coming out. Let's see.
Okay, I'm going to twist somebody's question. Do you think when we have a discussion, budgetary provisions, do you think the discussion should only be on the quantity as far as agriculture is concerned in terms of the crops, or they should actually consider the nutritional value too, or do budgetary provisions do consider that in their calculation, or it's just absolute numbers? Itna quintal bana diya, khatam ho gaya. No look at the qualitative analysis side or the nutritional
I
side of
wouldn't
these.
know. I really wouldn't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how the subsidies are given. I'm not sure of how it works really on the ground.
All right, fair enough. I think we've taken. There was one more question. Okay, this was a good question. Why does the state budget not get assessed in the same way as the
Yeah,
central budget? Why? Now you're someone
absolutely.
who
It's a
looks at all
great
budgets.
question.
Why doesn't it
No,
happen
this
then?
is a great question. We should. We need more analysts. Need more economists. We need more people just examining the state budgets, looking at the state finances to see how they are doing. There should be an evaluation of states. So, some sort of ranking of states has to be done by third party analytics to say how each state is doing. Absolutely correct. This is the time for us to focus very, very strongly on what are the states doing on the ground. Implementation is at the state level. We've got the right thought here. We need to ask what's happening on the ground. Which is the state which is delivering? What is it doing right? What is it that the other states can learn? Do they want to learn? Do they not want to learn? What is going on? I think these are excellent questions to ask and to pull that thread even more.
Yeah, I hope we realize that actually the biggest damage to India is done at the state level, not at the central level. Small
Yeah,
things, border reforms, police recruitment, state subject, not a central subject. Um, most of our problems, municipal, people keep looking at the central government and abusing everything.
right.
to the central government. But we just don't talk about it. Like I've gone to Punjab, same thing. We either we just abolish state governments and then the center takes all the power over, and we just have municipalities, empowered municipalities, and we have the government. Then what's the point of having chief ministers? Like, I have seen this
Correct.
problem majorly
Yeah.
happening in India. So I don't know how we're going to
Mhm.
solve it. But any last words before we wrap up, Monica? What do we expect now for the coming year, and maybe the next budget? Where does the government take this?
Next budget is very far. We'll have to see what we do in this year with tax collections. So I'm hoping that they have some way of using the big data that the government has to get the people who are out of the tax net into it. If that actually will solve so many of your problems. Should you be able to do that? That you are able to get the people who are stubbornly out of the tax net into it. What 2, 3, 4 lakh crore is right within reach. It's not difficult. But the problem is, how do you get them? We are so innovative, and the entire, the corruption is not just in the government. So, when GST had started, this whole input credit and all comes back. Then the company chartered accountants and lawyers realized that they were missing out, because earlier they had to bribe the government guy to get the files passed and all that. They would keep some. Now with GST input credit coming, they also lost. So the private sector, the lawyer, the chartered accountant, and the GST official now have this new deal that kuch to milega, something has to come. So we are back to that place. So it's corruption is not just in the government. Oh, I would imagine private sector corruption might even be higher.
Thou shall
I'm going
not
to get so badly trolled.
thou shall not be named. वो private sector corruption का यही rule है.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
वो लोग बोलते हैं, वो सर कॉस्ट का पार्ट होता है, आप समझा करो.
हाँ, आप समझा करो, स्पीड मनी है, ये स्पीड मनी है.
Yes, वो
Yeah,
ये समझते हैं. But Monica, thank you very much as always for coming and chatting with us over here,
thank you.
and thanks for answering all the questions. I look forward to having you again very soon.
Definitely. All right. All right. See you. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Monica. Bye. Bye. Take care. All right, guys, we'll wrap up today's podcast. In the link of the podcast, you will see Monica's X handle, the link to her website. Go follow her and buy her books. There are, I think, I've covered two of her books, so I would recommend all of you to go and buy those books too. If you want to buy my book, the link to my book is also there in the link in the description of the podcast, whether you're listening to the audio version or you're watching this on YouTube. Also, if you want to really support this podcast, the Cārvāka podcast runs on members only. So if you are going to support it, please join the membership program, whether on YouTube or on Patreon. If you want to send one-time donations in India, use UPI, kushalmehra at ICICI. In Canada, it's Interac Canada, kushalmehra81@gmail.com. If you can't do any of that, just like this video, subscribe to the Cārvāka podcast YouTube channel, and leave a rating on your preferred audio platform if you're an audio listener. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, namaste. Take care. Bye bye.